Welcome, everyone, to Write Out Loud, the podcast about storytelling, authorship, writing, creativity, molding that clay, making whatever it is that's in your mind come to life. And of course, I'm here joined by the beautiful, the wonderful, the Christina.
Crystalline?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. I made it up, but it works out really well, I think.
I don't think you made up the word. I think the word actually exists. I just don't
That's
know
true.
what the exact definition of it is. Someone look it up for us and tell us what it is.
There we go. Well, we decided, as we were kind of talking earlier today, we happened across a post on Threads that is by Editor-in-Chief Writes, and talk just a little summary about what the post was about.
Well, so there isn't a name along with Editor-in-Chief Writes. They are editor, publisher, storyteller behind the pages. So no name associated with it. But from this post, they say that 15 years in publishing, working with everyone from Kristen Hanna, Frida McFadden, Colleen Hoover, Gillian Flynn, Nicholas Sparks. They're dropping some pretty big names here.
Yeah.
I've seen it all. Indie breakouts, viral sensations. But the meaning behind the post is what really makes a book a bestseller. Like what components go into making the book a bestseller. And they end the first part of the thread by saying, here's the kicker. It's never about writing a great book. It's never just about writing a great book. They go into what does go into writing a good book. A great idea means nothing if it's poorly executed. Absolutely, 100%. A mediocre idea written brilliantly can sell millions. Absolutely, we've seen that happen.
Yes.
Some of those we call our candy, our crack candy.
Our mindless fluff that we love.
Yes. The next big thing is often just a well-packaged twist of an old idea. Okay, we can say that, for sure with Stephanie Meyer. Vampires have been around for a long time.
Sure.
But she had her own twist with it, and, it was great.
I mean, Yellowstone. Kind of a Western, right?
Yes.
Kind of a Western.
But Western with a new twist, Can they keep the ranch? They then go into the writing, does quality win? Bestsellers don't have to be the most beautifully written books. They need to be clear, engaging, and for me, this is key, emotionally gripping. Pacing and storytelling are greater than literary perfection. Absolutely. Hand me a literary perfect book, and I may not read it because I have said this to clients. If you hand me a technically perfect book, you may have written the emotion right out of it. Because then you're just reading sentence construction and great grammar and where's the meat, where's the story. And sometime, especially with fiction, and I'll even take that a step further and say the genre fictions, you need to have the vernacular in there. You need to create real characters. Real characters are not grammatically correct 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm a grammar queen, self-professed grammar queen, but that's not how I talk.
Yep.
I still speak in complete sentences. I probably still speak grammatically correct, but I still have things that, make me sound human.
Yep. There's so many of the classics, right, that are written in certain ways. Now, a lot of the classics actually do lend into more of the vernacular and more of the way that people spoke back in the day, right? But I think there's so many of those classics that are more highly regarded as being more technically perfect from a writing standpoint that are just boring as hell to me.
Yeah.
But a lot of the books that I find really, really gripping in that sense are, to this point, like there might be some grammatical mistakes. There might be some things that just don't really fit in a traditional sense, but the story makes you go, oh God, I love this.
Yes. And in fact, you as a reader are more willing to forgive grammatical mistakes if you're along for the great ride. And I would actually say the emotionally gripping stuff will actually connect the audience with you as a writer, that they're kind of it's willing suspension of disbelief. We all know we're reading a book. We all know we're reading something fiction. But we get so lost in the characters and the emotionality of it that we forget that we're reading sometimes. And we all of a sudden look up and go, oh, the sun has set. The fire is out in the fireplace. My wine is gone. What am I doing? Kind of hungry, feeling a little peckish. But yeah, that's when we connect to a story, we get lost in it. And that, I think, is the point of this, the idea that the writing doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It just has to be emotionally connecting.
Yeah. Think about even just from a movie standpoint, right? The Blair Witch Project. If you think about the technical aspects of that movie, it was a bunch of random shots in a handheld camcorder, really terrible lighting, really not a lot of dialogue to speak of. I mean, there was a lot of huffing and hawing and snot dripping and snorting. But there wasn't a lot of again, from a technical standpoint to tell the story. It would have been kind of like garbage on a page.
Yeah.
But because it had you in the feeling of it and it pulled you into the tension and the emotion of it, it worked.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And the thing is, I think if they may not have written everything down, and I can't actually recall if it was one of those things that they were improv a little bit, but they still had to have a basic outline. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Because everything just felt so natural. Like this could have really been a video that they found in the woods and these people had just appeared on there. Yeah, I think that when an audience gets so sucked into the story, it doesn't matter if it's something that, has been done before. Vampires, Stephanie Meyer. It's still so compelling and emotional pulling feelings. I told you before we started recording that when I talk to my writers, especially first time ones, because they're still kind of feeling their way on how do I do this?
Sure.
If you don't know where your story is going to go or what you're doing with the story, start with, how do I want to make my audience feel? Because that's not just going to kind of put you in a genre. I want my readers to feel suspense or fear or anxious, or I want them to feel all warm and fuzzy and
feel the love.
Feel the love.
The connection.
Oh, I want them to cry. Oh, one of my favorite all-time scenes in a movie ever is Steel Magnolias, when Sally Field is ranting about how she just wants her daughter back. And she's sobbing and screaming, and I'm so mad, I just want to hit someone. And Olympia Dukakis pulls in Shirley MacLaine and says, hit Weezer. 1 minute you are crying so hard that the tears are streaming down your face, and the next second you're laughing out loud because it's so ridiculous. Hit Weezer. But that's what we're talking about here, is pulling the audience in so much that they are laughing and then crying and feeling the whole gamut of emotions. So yeah, I completely agree with that aspect of this post. The next thing,
before we move on to that,
Yeah.
though, I want to just touch base on something, because we've talked about this before. I think we've played this episode a few times in Show versus Tell. When you decide what you want them to feel, them being your readers, right? Then figure out, how do you show them
right,
what will make them
Exactly.
feel that, versus tell them, right? Because you don't want to come out and say, hey, I need you to be scared because this guy is really scary and he's going to, he might stab them or something. Like, you've got to build up the tension, right? So so think about that. How do I want them to feel? Now, how do I show them the scene so that they feel that emotion? And connect those two together.
Yep, absolutely. That is a great way to frame that, is being able to show people. So again, using the Steel Magnolias, nobody told us we had to cry. Nobody told us how we had to feel. We just were already connected emotionally to Sally Field's character, because we have seen her, witness her throughout the entire movie up until that point. And in the grief of losing her daughter, you do feel that gamut of emotions where you're sad and angry and all of those emotions. So yeah, we didn't need to be told we have to cry at this point, or we have to feel something, or,
please cry.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So good point.
So that next section, then they talk about the publisher overall. And for a publisher, do they actually, the title of this section is The Publisher, do they make or break a bestseller?
Yeah, and they make some really good points. It's interesting because I do feel like the next paragraph really gets at the heart of it. I mean, traditional publishers can put a lot of marketing behind their books, and a lot of them do, especially for the big name writers. But there are times too where, so Ruby Dixon, that we've had on the podcast before, we talked a lot about how this series got its start. Yes, certainly in the romance community, people were like, oh, this is a great series, and it had great word of mouth. And she was doing just fine. And then there was someone on TikTok that made it explode. And it became something even more. So there is that influence from the nature of going viral. But the thing is, even when something goes viral, you still have to have the place where the book is being sold. In this way, they make the point of saying that the traditional publisher is going to have the strength of distribution. So I'm not saying that you hear about a book and you have your favorite bookstores that you go to find that book. And if that book isn't available there, is it going to have the same opportunity of going completely viral? Now, the argument can be made that as long as you're at Amazon, everybody knows that Amazon has 99% of books.
Sure.
Yeah, but not everyone prefers to buy from Amazon. It does all depend. But the one point I want to make, this is what I was saying about what they really got right about that. Today, a viral book can outsell a publisher-backed release. Yes. Power is shifting, and authors who understand this are the ones rewriting the rules. This is key to me. Matt is familiar with my philosophies of, back when I was doing marketing, I kept saying, everyone talks about thinking outside the box. Why can't we just get rid of the box altogether and just think of new and creative ways of book selling, of marketing? And so I think that's pretty much what they're saying here is, what is that new way? Earlier this year, TikTok was put on pause for 24 hours, and dear Lord, what were we all going to do? But that also showed me, okay, we can't put all the eggs into one basket.
Mm-hmm.
We got to think of new ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked before about doing a dedicated podcast to Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Sanderson, I think the number that we were given was $41 million on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, man, we'd love to have Brandon
just
come
to say,
on.
just to say that Brandon
come on
Sanderson had done so many different Kickstarters that he raised $41 million
Yes.
in that time and in all of his experience in Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So he's made a tremendous amount of money that way.
It's not just about how do we find those readers on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
or how do we put advertising out there on Amazon or what have you. But what is that next thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it something like Kickstarter that puts more money into the storyteller's pocket?
Sure.
That it gives readers something back. Now, I don't know exactly what he had available for the Kickstarter, but I can imagine, signed copies.
Merch.
Yes. But I'm thinking more in terms of special editions, like copies that are not going to be available anywhere else.
Sure.
And I think he writes fantasy, so maybe maps of the world or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think what this kind of steps into next is really about marketing, right? And again, the power that marketing has, because without it, so that just to kind of go into it, because we see it, I want to make sure we read it out. So, Editor-in-Chief writes, says, marketing is the real power player. Marketing is the biggest factor in bestseller status, period. You can write the greatest novel of a decade, but if no one hears about it, it's dead. Viral moments, targeted ads, influencer hype, and strong positioning can sell a book that wouldn't otherwise stand out. So then she goes on to talk about Colleen Hoover and saying, again, she was selling decently for years. She was a bestseller for years, but TikTok turned her into a viral sensation almost overnight. So it is really, again, that the marketing power of that really powerful, emotional, gripping story, and then the right viral moment just coming together.
Yeah. And this poster actually says that wasn't luck. Although by my definition of luck, it kind of is. Because I don't adhere to this. Luck is just, luck of the draw or whatever. Luck, and I believe it was Oprah who first said it this way. Luck is when opportunity meets preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity can come around, but if you are not ready for it, the luck isn't going to happen. But if you are ready, Hoover was already a bestseller. Okay. So all someone had to do was take her viral and she becomes a phenomenon. I mean, it was the same thing with J.K. Rowling. Even this Stephen King to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Once he got himself out there and, made the name for himself, back then there wasn't a TikTok, but he still went viral.
Yep.
It was just analog viral. But still, I mean, bookstores put him out front. They did promotions. They did all sorts of stuff. But again, the key to me is that he was ready. His writing was ready. So the idea that you can put it on one or the other, like if you're only going to have one thing, are you going to have marketing or are you going to have good emotionally connecting fiction?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't think you can have one without the other.
Yeah, I think if you have a moderately emotionally connected story, like you've started to go there, it's enough to get some traction, right? But it's not, I mean, people aren't going to just fall head over heels with it. But then you have a very powerful marketing behind it. You could lift it up. It could happen.
It
just can't be sans the emotion.
Yeah. I will agree with you to an extent. Because there are always going to be those people that read it and are like, okay, this isn't the last book that I read that was so phenomenal that I couldn't stop thinking about it. So yeah, I think, yes, if you connect emotionally with the audience, you're giving yourself the best shot. And, even though, like I said, I agree with this author by saying a mediocre idea, if executed well, yes. But you still have to emotionally connect with the audience. And if you have all of those components, so I have been watching Paradise on Hulu. And I have told everyone I know they have
Including
to
me.
watch Paradise. Yes, including you. The finale will be airing, and by the time this podcast airs, it will be complete. So everyone go rush out and binge watch it. And I'm not going to give any spoilers. But I will say that this show hit all of the good points. And that's what made it top tier.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, can you hit mid-tier and still be successful? Absolutely. And especially if it's better than what you were doing before. I think that the biggest problem we have right now in publishing is that marketing component. Is that TikTok going viral? Is that being seen? Because I have several phenomenal writers that I work with that still have not had that viral moment. And they are ready for that viral moment. Their writing is great. I would say emotionally connected and all. But you don't have that being seen component.
Sure.
I, of course, don't have any writers writing for me that are terrible. So I can't tell you whether or not mediocre writing has hit the mark. Although I will say this, there are writers out there that I have seen be bestsellers, and then I try them. And yes, it is very tough to take off my editor cap. But that also tells me that they need more work, either on the emotional connection part or something else. The show versus tell is a big one.
Sure.
But there are writers, we've had them on the podcast, that absolutely make me forget that I'm an editor, that draw me so much into the book that I look up and I go, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. and I got a meeting tomorrow morning and, I have to put this down.
Yep. She wraps it up, and I think this is the perfect pin on it, right? In terms of just how she kind of sums this up, or this person. A bestseller is not just about the idea, writing, publisher, or marketing. It's about the right mix of the compelling storyline and storytelling, not necessarily perfect writing, emotional resonance, right? Readers need to feel something, marketing that makes it impossible to ignore, and the right timing and a bit of luck. All of that comes together, right? That each part plays a piece in that. So the only thing that you as a author really need to do is to focus on your storytelling craft. Are you able to draw that emotion out? Can you show enough of a story that gets to the heart of what you want to portray? And then the ability for you to get the word out.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the two things you have full control over.
Yeah. There's a third that I will add, and this author actually frames it a different way, but it connects to what we were talking about last week with the believing in yourself. They say, push it like it deserves to be read. Meaning, believe in yourself enough to know that you deserve to be read, and that suggests your book. When people are talking about it, push your book. You are your own best, cheerleader. If we don't know about the book, how are we going to know about the book unless you start putting yourself out there? Go on some podcasts. I mean, last fall, one of the authors we had on had actually posted on Threads, "Hey, I'm looking for book podcast. Let me know."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
our little teeny tiny podcast that, I believed in us enough to suggest us as the podcast that she comes on, and she did.
Yep.
We love her for that.
Yep.
But yeah, but I think that ties in with that belief in yourself. So I would add
100%.
that to that aspect.
But I do think too, there's something that we talked about this weekend that a lot of authors don't really realize that this is a job, right? They're going to write the story. They have this idea in their head that they're going to write this story and they're going to put it out there. People are going to read it. They're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. This is a job. You have to hustle. You have to be able to sell yourself. You have to sell your book. You have to sell your story. You have to put the effort into it to get out there. It helps if you have a publisher that will help you with that, of course. But ultimately, if you're not willing to put in the work, if you're just going to write it and let it sit on the shelf, well, you're not going to be a bestseller. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. Unless you have a lot of people running through your house looking at all your books.
Unless you have that mother that carries your book everywhere with her and starts handing it out to people.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, but I just think it's worth remembering, right? If you're listening to this thinking, gosh, I want to write this book. I have this story. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Do it. But be prepared that unless you just want to write it from a cathartic standpoint, I need to get it done and off my chest. I don't really care what happens to it after that. If that's your thing, cool, great, do that. But if you want this to be a successful book, if you want this to be a bestseller, you are going to have to work at it.
Yeah. On the front end and the back end.
Yep. So, yeah, we just really like this, and I think I would also put the call out there that editor-in-chief writes, if you were feeling like maybe you want to come talk to us more about this, we'd love to have you join us.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Be a great conversation.
And if you want to remain anonymous, we do not have to. We will just call you editor-in-chief.
Yes, maybe EICW.
That might be too much of a mouthful. Maybe we'll just call him E.
Yeah, there we go. Just call him E. Awesome. But yeah, some good nuggets. So again, just to recap it, we talked just about what it takes to really make a story be all that it could possibly be, right? Yeah. It's the emotionally gripping story. Doesn't have to be technically perfect.
Connects with the audience.
Make your audience feel something and show them how to feel that thing. Market the heck out of it. Do whatever you think out. Again, get rid of that box. Let's think about these really crazy creative ways that we can market these books, right? That you can market your story and get the word out there. And just think about all of the great stories you've ever read and what really truly made them great. So I think we've got a lot of ideas around just what it takes to be that best-selling author. And I hope you take at least some of this advice and put it into play.
Yeah. Don't, I think my takeaway would be, yes, make sure that you have that emotionally compelling, connecting story. Absolutely. Without that part of it, you can have all the money in the world and the marketing in the world. And you'll maybe make your money back. But each book is going to have to be that way. So I think you have to marry the two. You have to figure out what you can do, what you are fully capable of, what is in your control. That's what I want to say. And then the marketing part, you can do what you can, but a lot of it isn't in your control, but you can still do stuff. You can still try to find those readers that help make it go viral. Or, as Matt said, think outside of the box. What are some new ways that you can reach readers? Think about it. We're creatives. Writers are creative. So if you have to think about how you're going to solve the plot of your book, then think about how do you solve the marketing game? How do you change it? how do you be, that next viral thing?
Yeah. In the marketing, how do you get your audience, in this case, the people you want to read the book, how do you get them to feel something about this book enough to pick it up?
Yes. Marketing is feeling as well.
100% psychology.
Yes.
Make them want to read it. Awesome. Well, again, we'll put the call out there. So editor-in-chief writes, if you want to join us, please drop us a line. You can find out where to get a hold of us at writeoutloudpod.com. And this, I think, is going to put a nice little bow on this week. But listen, as we say at the end of every single episode, just keep on writing, keep on creating, and keep on getting your voice out there, because that is where it belongs.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We really hope that you're enjoying every bit of it, but we would love to hear your feedback. Drop us an email either to matt@writeoutloudpod.com or christina@bookmatchmaker.com. We would love to hear your thoughts. What's working, what's not working, and what do you want to hear more of? Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.